All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm JustMoparJoe. This video is to help out everybody out there that has an old Mopar and needs an upgraded rear end. Y'all know most A-bodies and even some E-bodies came with a 7 1/4, and you want to upgrade to an 8 3/4. But if you try to buy an 8 3/4 housing for an A-body, some people want $1,000 for just a housing, if you can even find it. So my solution is, if you can find an 8 3/4 out there, which came in trucks, C bodies, B bodies, all kinds of other cars, and there's a lot of donor cars out there that are basically rotting in the ground. If you can grab up one of those housings, you can cut it down to fit your A-body. So that's what this video is all about. We're doing it obviously in my home shop. I don't have professional tools or any of that, but with a little common knowledge and just some level of precision, I think it turns out pretty nice. So I got my rear behind me here. I've still got a well-on purchase now, but I want to take you along for the process. So if you like the video, leave a comment and all that. I appreciate y'all watching. Let's go to work. So it's going to be a factory A-body length. And the way we did that, we went ahead to Dr. Diff. See if it's on here. There you go, Facebook, Twitter. And we got their standard stock A-body housing axles. And you got to verify, say yes they are, whatever. 5 4.5 inch bolt pattern with the screw-in studs. So this is going to be real nice in an A-body. And it's got the green bearings on it already. And we'll get those fitted up later. I got an old chunk here to just test fit with today. But we've got to narrow this housing. Here's what 30 minutes of cutting our old perches off and cleaning up looks like. Kind of see these factory housing marks. And we'll go back in there now. We are measuring for our perches right now, because the goal is, after we split the housing, the perches are going to go on both sides of the split, and then you weld and it'll make it kind of like a factory style gusset that we're adding here. So these are centered right now like this would bolt in an A-body, but it is still not the correct width. But all we did was now draw a line in the center of that so we know where the gap will be whenever they come back together, or the joint. So it'll be pretty closely centered underneath the spring perch itself. Taking 0.766 off, there's our center line where we scribed it, and he's got it marked. I can show you today. He's got it marked right there with an ink pen, 766. Check it with a tape measure, Joe. Okay.
Don't do it just that.
Show that we're not lying. Boom. Got our ends chamfered. He's gonna spline it up into the old dirty housing we got bolted in. There you go. I figured it'd take a little bit. And there we go. See our marks from earlier. Line those back up and get our channels. Here's what the bevels look like together. Just a slight separation there. The channels, see, these are two pieces of channel iron. Kind of hug the axle tube, and you clamp it and you clamp it. We got our new Dr. Diff axle in, and it spins like a breeze because it's splined up into the chunk. So what I'm gonna do is tack, tack. We'll spin it all the way over, tack 2 times on the other side, then move our channels and weld it up. So here is the housing itself. And this actually is for a 68 to 70 model B body. I may have said that incorrectly before, but it was the, I think, 54 and 15/16 housing. If you check on Dr. Diff's website, they sell you axles you can buy for any of those housings. So even if you wanted to cut down a C body housing to fit your Charger or whatever, you could. And you can buy the aftermarket axles with whatever studs you want. And you see I have this mocked up right now to weld where my channels went without the brake backing plates. So one big note is when you put the brake backing plates on, it's going to space this out. I think it's about 1/8 of an inch per side, maybe slightly more. And if you use a little gasket too, that may give you a little bit more. So right now, if we slide that axle in this housing, you cannot bolt them all the way down because it's touching inside here on your center floater pin, whatever you call that. A lot of guys throw those out. A lot of guys run a spool. If you're running a spool, it wouldn't matter. But this rear end's gonna go in an A body on a different channel. If y'all wanna see the install on it, hopefully it happens soon. But kind of where I'm at with this, I've got my welds done here. I want to clean all these up. I'm probably going to find a little bit of porosity or spots that need a little touch up with weld, clean it up again, and then we can set it up and do our perches. So the way we figured this was the perch, and see, we just use these bolts. If you can bolt the bolt, you can use the bolt to actually center the perch up, measuring from inside to outside to where it'll fit the spring hangers or fit the springs in the car. But the way the perches go is that it'll be on both sides of that weld, and just give it kind of some rigidity there. A lot of people may not agree with this not being the proper way to shorten a rear end. And I believe Dr. Diff even sells, if you want to come all the way out here and cut this off flush, you can, but most of the time people who do that have a jig of some kind that runs something all the way through the housing or runs cones through to center up. I didn't have any of that, and the way this is working is actually pretty nice. You can move that over here. Like, that axle is straight and true right now. It's splined into just an old housing that I had, and Joe and I did a lot of work on this yesterday. So it's not a quick process, but in the end you get a nice Mopar rear end to go in your Mopar car. So that makes a lot of people happy out there. Also, you can turn any 8 3/4 housing into an A-body housing. And if you wanted a mini tub or do anything like that and even shorten them more, you could. You see these Dr. Diff axles have a really long spline on them. So in theory, you could buy them and take it to your machine shop, have it cut off a couple more inches to even narrow your rear end more. Totally acceptable. That's an acceptable practice out there. So just something to think about. Let's get to the video. We're setting the perches now. And that is right back where we left it or found it. And we're gonna leave the housing alone, pull off our magnetic base and lay it on top of the perch before it gets C-clamped and welded. Here we are at 4 degrees. And it's C-clamped into place and ready to be welded. Something to keep in mind, see how we're touching here and there's a gap on that side. I don't know if that's a flaw of the manufacturer. And then also the hole size for this is smaller than that one right there. So keep that in mind. Here's our housing completed. And after all this funky paint's taken off and the whole thing's repainted, you'll probably never know that it was ever cut down, especially if it's in the car, but the pads split where our weld was, and there's a little bit of porosity if you wanted to go through and tack in those holes, but the tube itself is like a 1/4 inch thick, so it won't leak anywhere for sure. And this is our bottom side. We got that set up. It's all good to go.